I returned from my mother's bedside, a place of hushed whispers and sterile smells, only to find my wife locked in our basement. Our daughter had left, and honestly, part of me wonders if she was right to do so. Was I wrong to be so utterly blindsided by the chaos that awaited me? Tell me if you would have handled this betrayal, this utter demolition of my life, with more grace than I did, because I'm still reeling, still picking through the wreckage of what I thought was a perfect family, trying to understand how it all went so wrong. It all started, as many good stories do, with a sense of quiet contentment. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for 15 years. We had a beautiful home, 2 cars, and a daughter, Emily, who was the light of our lives. Emily was 17, bright, artistic, and just starting to talk about colleges. We were, by all accounts, the quintessential suburban family, living a life that felt, to me, like a dream come true. I worked a stable, well-paying job. Sarah was a talented graphic designer who worked from home, and we spent our weekends doing family things: hiking, movie nights, barbecues with friends. Life was good, predictable, and frankly, a little bit boring in the best possible way. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our little traditions. Every Friday night was pizza and a movie, chosen by Emily. Every Sunday morning, Sarah would make her famous pancakes. It was simple, but it was ours, and I cherished every moment of it. I truly believed we had it all figured out. We'd weathered the storms of early marriage, the sleepless nights of parenthood, the anxieties of financial responsibility, and we'd come out stronger, or so I thought. We were a unit, a team, and the foundation of our family felt solid as a rock. Then, my mother got sick. It wasn't sudden, but it was aggressive. A rapid decline that left us all scrambling. She lived about 3 hours away, so I spent most of my evenings and weekends making the drive, staying with her, helping my sister coordinate her care. It was emotionally and physically draining, but she was my mom, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. Sarah was incredibly supportive during this time. She'd pack me lunches, send me encouraging texts, and assure me that she and Emily were fine at home. "Don't worry about us, honey," she'd say, her voice always warm and reassuring over the phone. "Focus on your mom. We've got everything covered here." Emily, too, seemed understanding, though a little quieter than usual. She'd give me big hugs before I left, sometimes even slipping a little drawing into my bag for my mom. I appreciated their strength, their willingness to hold down the fort while I was gone. It made an unbearable situation a little more manageable. I felt guilty about leaving them so often, but they both insisted I do what I needed to do for my mother. "Family first," Sarah would always say. "We're your family too, and we understand." Those words echoed in my mind during my long drives, a comforting mantra that kept me going. I truly believed in the strength of our bond, our unwavering support for each other. I thought we were all facing this challenge together, a united front against the sadness that had descended upon us. One particularly difficult week, my mother's condition worsened significantly. The doctors weren't giving us much hope. I knew I needed to be there, around the clock. I called Sarah, my voice thick with emotion, explaining that I would probably be staying for several days, perhaps even a week. She was, as always, outwardly supportive. "Of course, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft and understanding. "Be there for her. We'll be here waiting for you." Emily also called me, her voice small, telling me she loved me and to be strong. I left, my heart heavy, preparing myself for the inevitable. The next few days were a blur of hospital visits, hushed conversations with doctors, and moments of quiet despair at my mother's bedside. It was a dark, exhausting time, but I knew I was doing what I had to do. I spoke to Sarah and Emily daily, brief check-ins that mostly consisted of me assuring them I was okay and them telling me everything was fine at home. I missed them terribly, but the urgency of my mother's situation overshadowed everything else. Finally, after nearly a week, my mother's breathing stabilized slightly, and she fell into a peaceful, if precarious, sleep. My sister assured me she would stay, giving me permission to go home and rest, to see my family. I was bone-tired, emotionally drained, but a spark of anticipation ignited within me. I couldn't wait to see Sarah and Emily, to hug them, to be back in the familiar comfort of our home. I drove the 3 hours in a haze of exhaustion and longing, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. I pictured Emily's excited face, Sarah's warm embrace. I longed for the normalcy of our quiet suburban life, the easy rhythm of our days. I pulled into our driveway, the house dark except for a single light in the kitchen. That struck me as a little odd. Usually, there would be more lights on, especially if they were awake. I unlocked the front door, the familiar scent of our home enveloping me. "Hello, I'm home," I called out, my voice a little hoarse from disuse. Silence. I walked through the living room, flicked on more lights, and found nothing. No Sarah, no Emily. Their shoes weren't by the door. "Sarah? Emily?" I called again, a faint prickle of unease beginning to spread. I checked the kitchen, empty. The dining room, empty. Their bedrooms were neat, beds made, but also empty. My heart started to beat a little faster. Where could they be? It was late, almost midnight. They wouldn't usually be out this late. I called Sarah's cell phone. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I tried Emily's, same result. A cold dread started to seep into my bones. This wasn't right. This wasn't like them. I considered calling the police, but then I thought, maybe they just went out for a late-night run to the store or to a friend's house. But why wouldn't they text me? Why wouldn't they answer their phones? As I stood in the silent house trying to rationalize their absence, I heard a faint thumping sound. It was muffled, indistinct, coming from somewhere below. The basement. We didn't use the basement much, mostly for storage, and it was usually locked. A surge of fear, mixed with a strange sense of bewilderment, propelled me toward the basement door. It was at the back of the kitchen, usually kept locked with a deadbolt. To my shock, it was locked. From the outside, the deadbolt was thrown, preventing anyone from opening it from the inside. And the thumping continued, growing slightly louder, more insistent. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Is someone down there?" The thumping stopped. Then, a voice, muffled but unmistakably Sarah's, called out, "Mark? Is that you? Thank God. Let me out." My blood ran cold. Sarah? Locked in the basement? And from the outside? Who would do this? Why? My mind raced, trying to piece together this impossible puzzle. Had we been robbed? Was someone else in the house? I fumbled with the deadbolt, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. The lock clicked and I pulled the heavy wooden door open. The basement stairs were dark, and a chill emanated from the open doorway. "Sarah, what's going on?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. As I looked down, I saw her, standing at the bottom of the stairs, her face pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and something else, something I couldn't quite decipher. She looked disheveled, her hair a mess, her clothes wrinkled. She lunged up the stairs and into my arms, clinging to me, sobbing. "Oh, Mark, thank God you're here. It was awful. She locked me down here." "She? Who? What happened?" I demanded, holding her tight, my mind still reeling. "Emily," Sarah choked out, her voice barely audible. "Emily locked me in the basement." My world tilted. Emily? Our sweet, artistic Emily? This was impossible. Emily did this? Why? Where is she now? I asked, pulling back slightly to look at her, my hands on her shoulders. Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know why, Mark. I don't know. She just changed. And then she locked me down here. She said I deserved it. She said she was leaving." The words hit me like a physical blow. Emily left? Emily locked her mother in the basement? This was a nightmare. I couldn't comprehend it. Our daughter, the one we loved and cherished, had seemingly snapped, imprisoned her mother, and then vanished. What could possibly have happened while I was away? What kind of twisted reality had I walked into? I felt a surge of protectiveness for Sarah, a desperate need to understand and fix this. "We need to call the police," I said, pulling out my phone. "We need to find Emily, and we need to figure out what the hell happened." Sarah nodded, still trembling, burying her face in my chest. The relief of her being safe was quickly overshadowed by the crushing weight of Emily's disappearance and the horrifying implication of her actions. So that's the situation I was in. Completely blindsided, standing in my quiet, suburban home with my terrified wife, our daughter vanished. and an impossible story unfolding. I had to make a choice. Do I believe Sarah's story immediately, or do I question it? Do I rush to find Emily, or do I try to understand the chaos first? Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have called the police immediately? Would you have tried to get more answers from Sarah first? Let me know what your first move would have been, because I honestly still second-guess my own. I held Sarah for a long time, trying to calm her, to make sense of what she was telling me. She eventually pulled away, her eyes still red-rimmed, but a spark of defiance seemed to flicker within them. "I need to tell you everything, Mark," she said, her voice steadier now. "You need to know what she did, what she's become." We sat at the kitchen table, the silence of the house pressing down on us, amplifying the gravity of her words. She started from about a month ago, a week or so after I'd begun my regular trips to my mother's. Emily had started acting differently. She was more withdrawn, spending almost all her time in her room. She'd snap at Sarah for trivial things or just ignore her altogether. Sarah initially attributed it to typical teenage angst, perhaps coupled with the stress of my mother's illness and my frequent absences. She tried to talk to Emily to ask her what was wrong, but Emily would just shut her down, storming off or giving her the silent treatment. One afternoon, Sarah had gone into Emily's room to put away some laundry and found a small, intricately carved wooden box hidden under a pile of clothes. Curiosity, she admitted, got the better of her. She opened it and found a stack of letters. Not just any letters, but old, yellowed letters tied with a faded ribbon. And then she saw the pictures. Old photographs of a young woman who looked strikingly like Emily, but with a different set of eyes, a harder set to her jaw. Sarah recognized the woman eventually. It was her own mother, my mother-in-law, who had passed away years ago, long before I met Sarah. But it wasn't just photos of her mother. There were photos of her mother with a man I didn't recognize, a man who looked remarkably like Emily. And then Sarah began to read the letters. She didn't go into detail, but her face grew pale as she recounted the story. They were love letters, she said, between her mother and this unknown man, written years before Sarah was born. Letters that detailed a secret affair, a passionate, clandestine relationship. And one letter, near the bottom of the stack, changed everything. It spoke of a child conceived out of wedlock, a child that her mother had given up for adoption, ostensibly to maintain her reputation and appease her strict, traditional family. Sarah said she felt a crushing weight descend upon her as she read. Her mother, a woman she had always idealized, had kept this secret her entire life. A secret child, a half-sibling Sarah never knew existed. But the real horror, the real twisting knife, came when she saw the date on that letter. It was from almost exactly 18 years ago, a mere few months before Emily's birth. Sarah's mind, she said, immediately connected the dots, a terrifying, impossible connection. She looked at the photos of the man, and then at a recent photo of Emily on her bedside table. The resemblance was uncanny, chilling. Sarah started to suspect, no, to fear, that Emily wasn't my daughter at all. She was the daughter of this secret affair, somehow swapped or exchanged at birth, and had been living with us, unknowingly, all these years. Now, this is where the story gets really dark, according to Sarah. She confronted Emily with the letters and the photos, demanding an explanation. Emily, initially, denied everything, grew defensive, and tried to snatch the box back. But Sarah pressed, her own mind reeling from the implications. Finally, Emily broke down. She admitted that she had found the box months ago, tucked away in the attic during a spring cleaning spree. She had recognized her grandmother, of course, but the man was a mystery. Over weeks, she had pieced together the truth, meticulously researching, cross-referencing dates, and even undergoing a discreet DNA test using hair samples from me and herself, and from an old brush of Sarah's. The results, Emily claimed, were conclusive. I was not her biological father, and Sarah, her own mother, was not her biological mother. Emily was the child of that secret affair, a child adopted and placed with us, while our actual biological daughter was given to another family. Emily, fueled by a deep sense of betrayal and abandonment, became obsessed with finding her biological parents and, even more so, with finding our biological daughter, the child she felt had been stolen from her, her true sister. Sarah, naturally, was in a state of shock, denial, and profound grief. She couldn't believe it. It felt like a sick joke, a cruel twist of fate. She tried to calm Emily down, to explain that even if it were true, we were still her family, that blood didn't define love. But Emily wouldn't hear it. She felt lied to, used, and utterly alone. She saw Sarah's attempts to comfort her as further manipulation, as an attempt to keep her from the truth. The atmosphere in the house, Sarah explained, became unbearable. Emily grew increasingly hostile, lashing out at Sarah, accusing her of complicity in this grand deception. Emily saw Sarah as the gatekeeper of a truth that had been hidden from her for 17 years. Sarah, meanwhile, was grappling with her own shattered reality. The thought that Emily, the daughter she had raised and loved, might not be hers was unbearable. The idea that her mother had been a liar, a deceiver, was equally devastating. And then, the ultimate fear, that our actual biological daughter was out there, living a life without us, and we were unknowingly raising another woman's child. This culminated the night before I came home. Sarah said she had confronted Emily again, trying to plead with her, to reason, to just understand the extent of her research and her claims. Emily, however, had reached her breaking point. She screamed at Sarah, accusing her of trying to suppress the truth, of being selfish, of denying her own true identity and the existence of her real sister. And then, in a fit of rage, Emily had shoved Sarah into the basement, locked the door, and calmly stated, "You can stay down here and think about what you've done. I'm going to find my real family." Then she left. As Sarah finished her story, the house felt colder, darker. I sat there, stunned, trying to process the enormity of what I had just heard. It was too much. It was utterly unbelievable, yet Sarah's distress was palpable, her tears real. My mind spun. Could it be true? Could Emily, our Emily, not be ours? And if so, where was our real daughter? And where was Emily now? The questions cascaded, each one more terrifying than the last. I looked at Sarah, her face etched with exhaustion and pain, and a wave of protectiveness, of profound sadness washed over me. Regardless of the truth, she was suffering. Our family was shattered. I spent the next few hours in a daze, trying to comfort Sarah, trying to make sense of the unbelievable tale. We called the police. They took Sarah's statement, and though they seemed skeptical about the locked in the basement by her daughter part, they did open a missing persons case for Emily. They also expressed concern about Sarah's mental state, suggesting she might be in shock. I, however, didn't want to dismiss her story outright. We started checking Emily's room, looking for clues. And that's when I found it. Hidden deep in her closet, tucked inside a hollowed-out book, was a meticulously kept binder. Inside were copies of the letters Sarah described, more photos, birth certificates, Emily's and another child's, and printouts of DNA test results. My heart sank as I saw my name, Sarah's name, and Emily's name on a detailed genetic report. The results were stark, unambiguous. I was not Emily's father. Sarah was not Emily's mother. And there, next to a detailed profile of a girl living 3 states away, was a conclusive match. Biological sister. Our daughter. Our real daughter, living with another family with a different name. The world seemed to fall away beneath my feet. The pain was excruciating, a raw, gaping wound in my soul. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed, was a lie. Emily, the girl I had raised, loved, and called my daughter, was not biologically mine. And our actual daughter was out there, lost to us for 17 years. The anger, the grief, the profound sense of betrayal all crashed over me. How could this have happened? How could Sarah's mother, our own mother, have orchestrated such a cruel deception? And how could Sarah have never suspected? Or had she? A dark seed of doubt began to sprout in my mind, a suspicion that perhaps Sarah knew more than she was letting on, that perhaps her shock was a little too convenient. But that was a thought for later. Right now, Emily was gone, and our biological daughter was a stranger. We gave the binder to the police, who were now much more interested in Sarah's story. The detective assigned to the case, a gruff but sympathetic woman, assured us they would do everything they could. They started an investigation into the birth certificates, the adoption agencies involved, and the background of Sarah's mother. It was a long, arduous process. We eventually learned the full, devastating truth. Sarah's mother, desperate to hide her affair and protect her family's reputation, had indeed orchestrated a clandestine swap at birth. Our daughter, born at the same hospital on the same day as Emily, had been exchanged, and Emily, the child of Sarah's mother's affair, had been given to us. It was a monstrous act, a secret that had festered for 17 years, destroying 2 families in its wake. The aftermath was a blur of police investigations, lawyers, and intense emotional turmoil. Emily was eventually found safe at the home of her biological father, the man from the letters. She had contacted him, presented him with her evidence, and he, equally shocked, had taken her in. He was a kind, quiet man, oblivious to the secret child he had. It was a bittersweet reunion. Emily was still angry, still hurting, but she was alive, and she was starting to find a sense of belonging with her biological father. We, however, were left with the wreckage. We contacted our biological daughter's adoptive parents. That conversation was one of the hardest of my life. They were good people, loving parents, and they were, understandably, devastated. We decided, for the sake of both children, to proceed with caution, to let them process this information in their own time. Our biological daughter, a shy but intelligent girl named Lily, slowly, tentatively began to connect with us, through letters, then video calls. It was a fragile, tender beginning, filled with hope and heartbreak. Sarah and I tried to pick up the pieces of our marriage, but the cracks were too deep, the betrayal too profound. The secret, even if it wasn't hers directly, had been harbored by her family, and the lingering doubt about what she truly knew, or chose not to know, cast a long shadow. We sought therapy, individually and as a couple, but the weight of it all was crushing. The life we had built, the family we cherished, was gone, replaced by a complex, painful reality. We eventually decided to separate, needing space to heal, to find ourselves again. It was a mutual, heartbreaking decision, but we both knew it was necessary. I often think about Emily, about the girl I raised, and the profound sadness I feel for her, for the truth that was stolen from her. I miss her terribly, and I think about Lily, our daughter, the beautiful stranger we are now slowly getting to know, and the immense love and guilt that washes over me. This whole mess was a brutal awakening, a reminder that even in the most seemingly perfect lives, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. Secrets can destroy, and the truth, when it finally comes out, can shatter everything. If you were on my side, if you felt the raw pain and confusion I did, please like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this because I'm still trying to navigate this new, fractured reality, and perhaps sharing it helps. And please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Tell me, how do you move on from a betrayal so profound? How do you rebuild a family when its very foundations have been obliterated? I'll see you all in the next story.